Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar where the topic is, what does Enterprise Agile PPM mean to the modern PMO? My name is Doug Wellesby, and I'm the channel manager here at Wicrosoft. I'm also joined by my colleague, Jose Levy, our practice director of Azure Cloud Services and Agile PPM. During today's webinar, attendees will be on mute and the line will not be open for questions. However, feel free to use the GoToWebinar question feature to submit questions. I'll address these questions during the webinar and will respond via email if we do not get to your specific question. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away from the webinar, no need to worry, as I'll be emailing a link to the presentation once it has been posted to our YouTube channel. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jose.
Thank you, Doug, and thanks everyone for joining today. This is our second webinar of the year, and we are covering Agile PPM and the modern PMO. We use interchangeably, maybe, just to clarify, Agile PPM and Enterprise Agile, just so that everyone is clear. So we're going to be talking about, what it takes to take the organization to Enterprise Agile and project portfolio management in the context of, what is taking place right now with all of the Agile transformations. So we're going to try to cover, go through our agenda that we had set for the webinar. We're going to deal with some trends that are impacting PMOs and how we change from traditional to the new ways of work. Talk about the impact of that on the modern PMO and how our one plan solution supports that transformation. So we've used this slide before, but rise of technology is just driving change. There used to be industries that we thought were not going to be impacted by the pace of technological innovation, but really there is no industry, no sector where we cannot witness some disruption in some way. The overused term of digital transformation is now being integrated into all different types of digital initiatives in an organization, whether they're impacting customers, impacting team members, the ways that team members work, the way that organizations offer their products, or the way that organizations operate. Those are the four main pillars of disruption. And again, no industry is spared. No part of an organization is without benefit from some digital initiative. So changes in the norm. We've used this slide as a theme many times, and really what we're trying to depict is that in the past we were in a mode where we had much more of a predictable business environment. We were planning ahead and making adjustments as needed. Organizations really, whether public or private, are driven by their fiscal years, whether it's calendar or their own fiscal, that has quarterly reporting and 1 to 3 year or 5 year plans. And we're now in a situation where technology and cloud are driving faster response times from every one of those pillars that I mentioned: customers, products, operations, and our employees. So we have to constantly be in a planning mode after getting results from all of those different stakeholders. And really the future is now. We're in a position, and evidenced by what leading organizations are doing, where we have to change the way that we work, the way that we deliver results to those stakeholders. So our our legacy traditional ways of work have to change in order to address that demand for immediate outcomes, business outcomes. So here I'm borrowing a slide from a presentation shown at the PMO Symposium, which we were fortunate enough to attend and participate in. So here, Alison Backen, who leads Agile transformation in a large organization, depicted the traditional approach of defining a value proposition and going through and doing detailed business planning, and then going through and defining requirements, and then building that in order to deliver on time, on budget, on scope, and then unfortunately getting to the very end and having customers that are not really happy with what they're receiving. So in an accelerated mode, what we want is a happy customer quicker and many times over. In order to do that, the new ways of work, which again are represented by Agile, have us defining business objectives, testing those hypotheses, having constant interactions with customers through minimum viable products. So again, important word product, and now we're talking about products. We're iterating through it and getting feedback from the customer in order to have a delighted customer. So there's a lot of change that goes on in that way of working. It's definitely much more collaborative, iterative. We are allowed to fail and fail early. However, when you try to scale that, because there are teams that are successfully doing that within organizations, when you try to scale that and change an entire organization, that's where the conflicts occur. And the modern PMO has to manage both ways of work, and we'll get into that in a couple of more slides. But really, in this new way of work, drive that to be the predominant way of delivering value to customers. So if you want to survive, the new way of work is the approach to go in order to have, again, being able to meet the demand from your customers. So it's really a question: where are you in the enterprise Agile spectrum as adoption continues? Are you more in the Agile side? Are more of your projects being done in Agile fashion, or are you where Waterfall is still predominant? And it really doesn't matter. Over time, we believe that more organizations will have to go into the Agile mode in order to again deliver more to customers. We also believe both will coexist. So Waterfall, predictive ways of work will always be around depending on the type of work that's being delivered. So it's not that Waterfall is going to go away, is that we need to learn how to manage more of our work in an Agile fashion. And you need to prepare your organization as a PMO, as a modern PMO, to be able to accommodate that. So, there are some trends that support that. The Scrum Master Survey last year showed that 58% of participants had actually been part of an Agile transformation. So, in most cases, you'll see that more than half of organizations, there are surveys that show even in the 90s where most organizations have one team that is actually working in an Agile fashion. So this is something that if you're not managing internally within your organization, you have to start taking it into account. Our second data point comes from the Gardner 2019 Enterprise Agile Survey, where it highlights that organizations that have been doing this for some time have greater success. So we're probably, and again, this is anecdotal evidence from practitioners, we're probably kind of at the midpoint. There's definitely organizations that have been doing Enterprise Agile for more than more than 10 years. The average is probably right in the middle, but this particular statistic is telling, because basically we're seeing here that 86% of organizations have some level of success with Agile after they've implemented one framework and have been at it for more than 3 years. So that really is a telling point, that if you have to be at this for some time, it's a longer term commitment in order to show success, and you have to iterate and evolve through it as the Agile mindset calls for. So and in the most successful ones, we're talking here, greater than 50% that have been, again, more than 3 years of Agile experience with one framework. So the results for high performers are pretty outstanding, and this comes from reInvent at AWS this year, where the following stats were provided as part of digital transformation. And the one that is unfathomable, it's almost unimaginable how you can actually achieve this, but Amazon is actually having 15,000 releases per day versus one per month for the status quo. Now, in this particular case, we're talking about an organization that has streamlined all aspects of value delivery. In other words, they are doing Agile very well, they are doing DevOps very well, and they're using cloud in microservices in order to get those releases out the door to their product, their digital product. So again, if you're talking about digital initiatives, this is the end goal. At the top, you can see some of the exponential improvements that they've had in terms of the metrics, how you would measure software releases. So at this one, 170 times mean time to release is pretty outstanding, and they're automating all their changes and obviously leading to lower failure rates. The discipline that it takes and the joint interconnectivity between all parts of the organization to achieve this, it can be done. I think that's what the results indicate. So modern PMO for enterprise Agile, some success factors. If you summarize all the data, and there's tons and tons of evidence from practitioners out there, some of the things that stand out are that it's really an organizational commitment. If you want to go into enterprise Agile, it's all levels, and we have our own customer evidence where we have some parts of the organization doing it well, others not doing it well, wanting to achieve those success metrics that I showed earlier, and then having a failure point at some level, because again the entire organization was not in it. So it's not only executive sponsorship, it's also business unit level, it's IT, it's infrastructure and operations. So it's something that if you want to achieve it and do it well, you need to get buy-in from everyone. The other concept is that the organization needs to reorient itself around products and product delivery. So this doesn't necessarily mean, although it could, that you have to do a reorganization, like a total functional reorg. There's this concept of defining teams, cross matrix teams around products. We literally can draw a kidney or draw a bean around an org structure and define where those teams are. And I'll talk about the concept of value stream shortly, but at some point you're going to have to redefine how you deliver value to your customer around the product, because then you can actually have dedicated teams around that product. And that violates in some ways our hierarchical organizational structures that we have been built our enterprises around. So that's an important discussion. It leads to our fourth point, which I'll talk in a minute, which is actually managing change. There's debate of whether you can go just small and scale, or do all products and have wholesale organizational change. Depends on culture, depends on what leadership wants to do. But in most successful cases, even in the very early ones that we see in the market, it all started with one product, proven success, and scaling to the rest of the organization. And obviously having leadership involved since the beginning on proving success and scaling. And then the last one is this is a change management initiative and a change program, so you have to define and use all of your experience and best practices in making that happen within your organization. You have to address the change that it's going to have on people and the way they work, your processes internally and how they integrate into enterprise agile. Obviously, the technology stack and having data in order to understand where you need to improve. And then finally, as I said, organization. How is HR going to contribute in the role redefinition? Where are you going to have the different organizational units that are going to actually execute this? Now we're talking about a lean center of excellence and program office for enterprise agile. So all those elements need to be taken into consideration when you go into this initiative and redefine your PMO for enterprise agile. So the leadership mindset I find to be extremely important because obviously, they dictate strategy and direction for the organization, but they also in most cases, have the biggest change that needs to occur, and it's a difficult endeavor because you might have part of your senior leadership team buying into having an enterprise agile and modern PMO, while the mid-levels or even other senior leaders might not be so much. So it's really a matter of coaching, training, leading them into the ways that their management approach needs to change. And we list here, some of the big drivers. Focusing on the flow of value. At the end of the day, that's really, in the case of lean portfolio management in particular, what we're trying to drive by defining value streams and products and programs, having greater customer feedback loop and interactions, the MVP, having input early, driving customer success in order to get that feedback. Focusing on iterative and adaptive delivery. That is core to agile at the team level. It's probably the easier part for software delivery in particular. Formalizing innovation and understanding how to integrate innovation into that iterative delivery. Decentralized decision making. So here we're inspiring product owners and teams to make the decisions of what is going to make our customer happy in terms of the value that we're going to take to them. Talked about structuring the organization around products, which is key. I talked about the long-term initiative nature of enterprise agile and modern PMOs, where again, minimum 3 years is where you're starting to see some level of success. And then formally committing to change management. In other words, this is not something that we're going to fund in order for some people to get trained. You have to develop the capability through a change program within your organization. So if I was to say, if somebody asked me, what should I tell my leadership team in terms of how we're going to have to change our ways of thinking, these are some of the key principles that you should consider. So we're gonna hit on this on leadership with our lean portfolio management, and we happen to think that Scale Agile framework is a better approach for doing lean portfolio management, whether you adopt it directly as it is, or the better approach, which is really to just whatever's going to work for your organization without violating the principles of safe LPM. It all begins with training change agents and training the executives. So as I said, that is really the key. You can start top down. The third step that you see there is identifying value streams and arts, which I'll get to in a second. But before you even get to that point, we have to, again, change that mindset and the ways of managing of executives and managers within the organization in order to, again, move in the direction of a modern PMO with Enterprise Agile. And so after we train, we then go into more of the operational side of actually implementing by identifying our value streams and our Agile release trains. And from there, the next step is actually to do program planning for those Agile release trains. Not a full, but an initial transformation, if you will, normally takes 10 weeks. And we're talking about having training and coaching throughout that whole process, and tooling in order to achieve some meaningful or measurable results that we can go back and then reflect on and iterate and continue on by making changes and scaling through to adding more Agile release trains. Now this next step in terms of the value, let's talk about that for a second, because it's not necessarily a new concept. In fact, operational value streams have been around for some time, and really it's the way that we represent our highest level process elements within the organization to deliver that customer value. They actually usually confine them within enterprise strategy, within enterprise architecture. So the most prominent enterprise architecture framework, which is TOGAF. The initial parts are actually business architecture, which now actually is represented by the Business Architecture Guild. So it's a discipline in its own. And the focus is on value streams and capabilities. And you can see here that this graphic is directly from SAFe, from Scale Agile, and it shows hospital patient onboarding through the entire process. Now below that are the systems that support that. So the development value stream really is a representation of all the systems that actually enable all the solutions that enable the operational value stream. So in that workshop during implementation of lean portfolio management, for instance, what we would be doing is making sure that we've identified correctly both operational and development. The development one is going to then break down into Agile release trains, which is really the combination of systems that support the operational value stream. Now I put DevOps in there because this is becoming now more of a mainstream topic. Value stream management within development and operations, it's actually being included within the tooling for DevOps right now. So there's consolidation right now in the market within DevOps tools in order to do value stream management, which is really the same concept that I'm showing here. How are we performing on an integrated basis through in a DevOps manner in order to deliver more value to that value stream? So this is key to doing any type of enterprise Agile transformation, being able to identify both your operational and development value stream, because then from there you would go into your Agile release train where the program actually operates. In the context of the modern PMO with lean portfolio management, you can see that the value stream is represented, and really the portfolio is funding value streams. So this is the other reason why it's really important to understand what the value streams are in your organization, because that's where your products are. So again, the focus on products that we talked about earlier, products are represented within the value streams, and you will the portfolio will be within the value stream, and the value stream then you will be funding the epics. These are literally what goes into your lean portfolio Kanban, which is here within the portfolio backlog. There's a number of other concepts that we've covered in other webinars, so I encourage you to look back in our webinar catalog so you can get a better understanding of LPM if you haven't. But from the context of a modern PMO, it's likely that you have some strategic themes that are currently guiding you. If you go through the process of defining your value streams and your arts, then you will be in a position then to deliver with lean portfolio management by having the portfolio Kanban and applying the lean budgets and guardrails that are part of the framework, and then at the highest level of the organization have these portfolios that provide a go/no-go to epics for specific products. So I'll leave it there. Again, we've covered LPM before, but the value stream concept is core to a modern PMO. So let's talk now about one plan for Agile PMOs. I'm going to show you a couple of examples because the journey doesn't have to begin, like I said, with going straight into lean portfolio management. You could begin with what we call adaptive. And one second here while I change my screen. So what adaptive allows us to do is to have that intermediate step before we actually go with a lean portfolio management approach. And what that means is we're going to be looking at epics and projects at the same level. So 1 second here. So this is one plan, and we are actually seeing it in its native environment. We can actually also have this solution within Azure DevOps, and I'll be showing that in a second. But what I wanted to highlight within one plan for Adaptive PPM, you can see here that we have within the hierarchy, because we can actually develop a hierarchy within the solution, both enterprise projects and portfolio epics at the same level. We could here have any real project type that we needed to accommodate, but in this case, for simplicity's sake, and again, this would be an organization that's having its first iteration into adaptive PPM, where you're part of the organization is doing portfolio epics, but the majority of projects are going to be waterfall, which is perfectly fine. The concept here is being able to harmonize those projects and that data in order to start taking the steps of Enterprise Agile. In terms of the groupings, we really have no limit in terms of the data that we can actually group projects by. And you can see here that it could be by business unit, it could be by, in this case, we're looking at a portfolio view. It could be by priority, strategic alignment, if you're using those that data set within your projects. The other interesting attribute of the solution is within the details for any specific project. We have the ability to manage, unique stage gates, or in the case of Agile, framework buckets that represent the flow of the project. So this is a waterfall project. So we have create, select, plan, manage, and close. This is these are stages that you can actually control based on exit criteria. That's a traditional project portfolio management approach. Within the form itself, it can reflect your traditional business case. So again, accommodating what would be your waterfall business case. What is interesting is that we begin to insert within the business case some of the lean concepts that are of value. So this is your first step of trying to get those metrics into your decision process within your portfolio. So here we're including some of the WSJF calculations, which is a primary way of doing prioritization with lean portfolio management. We can also, for all projects, include the definition of cost and resources. Don't want to go too much into this, but at the end of the day, whether we're talking about individual resources or teams, which is really the big change in doing Enterprise Agile, we can accommodate both. So in this case, we have a project where we have individual users. The solution also has a grid and a board that we can bring in work. And so again, it can accommodate different ways of work. So in this case, we're talking about a project that is actually using Microsoft Project Professional and is connected. In this case, the rule is that you actually edit the project in Microsoft Project. So if you're a project user, you literally load the schedule here and have it for everybody else to see. In terms of standard ways of looking at a project through Waterfall, you can do that. So that's the ability, again, to accommodate a Waterfall project. If we go back, we can see that within we have portfolio epics here also. So these are the ones that are being done using Agile. You can see here that we can integrate different tooling into the solution. So in some cases we can manage it directly within one plan, and others we are using in this case Project for the Web, which is the new project tool that Microsoft introduced, which happens to have a nice board that we can use. So again, the ability to integrate that data directly within a portfolio, an adaptive portfolio, is available to the user. And this is our ability to actually manage something in a board, and here we can define our own buckets, and we have timeline also. So any of that data then would be synchronized with the project. If we actually went to the project details, we can see that the actual buckets for my lean portfolio Kanban are actually reflected. So again, in adaptive, I have the ability to manage the review and approval of the project based on the approach that I'm using, whether it's a traditional portfolio management stage gates or lean, in this case, lean portfolio Kanban buckets. So we have funnel, reviewing, analyzing, backlog, implementing it done. We haven't actually started this project. Here you can see that the form is different because we're using lean prioritization concepts. We could reflect a full lean business case here if we wanted to. Most of the data elements here are lean business case driven, so we're following the framework within the details of the form. Same concept in terms of being able to manage financials and resources. Again, this is a brand new project that got created, hasn't even been approved. We have a couple of team members that are been planned on it or been placed on the project on a committed basis, and we can use our grid. I believe in this case we're using new project. So again, we would plan a new project and then synchronize our data into one plan for viewing. So, and if we went back, we can see that we have all types so that we can combine our enterprise project together with our portfolio epics. Now, from an adaptive standpoint, the benefit of doing that, and let's go back to, I will go ahead and won't use a grouping in this case in order to be able to do prioritization. So prioritization can be done in, again, both ways. We're harmonizing approaches here, having the ability to go between our traditional versus our lean approach. So if you actually wanted to see all projects within lean prioritization, you can do that here. And what that means is, and I think this is where the change begins to occur for the organization, within your portfolio governance, even your waterfall projects can have WSJF values, and you can start defining all the criteria that you're going to require in order to make decisions on the projects, and then have the ability to do prioritization, which literally means stack rank based on whatever value is the most important, whether it's business value or WSJF. You can see here that we have proposed projects within our prioritization grid, and if the decision is made, it's as easy as coming in and turning it to active. So again, the modern solution allows us to come in here and either directly on the grid or through a quick edit, change any of the values in order to initiate the project. So again, adaptive combination of both Agile and Waterfall, and having the ability to accommodate the two approaches in order to drive the organization more to the left. In terms of being able to summarize resources and financials, again, if we're including that data set within our details at whatever stage or bucket within our funnel, you can see here that we can actually make changes on proposed projects and see the impact that they're having on the allocation of our portfolio. And then likewise, we can look at financials in order to do what if scenarios with our budgets. And there we can apply targets in order to see how close or far we are from the budgets that we've defined. So again, this is adaptive, and we're incorporating all types of projects. We do have the ability always to see our Gantt at any point in order to determine when delivery is going to be made. This doesn't take away our ability to do other types of views. So if we wanted to do program views, for instance, within our adaptive solution, we can. So again, we're combining here both, but if we wanted to look at specifically our epics, and we don't have features here, so we are looking at from a portfolio and program standpoint. But same concept in terms of being able to move to see what's going on within them, the summaries for epics, their state, where they are. This one's an analyzing, for instance. So we can easily move it to the next step within our quick edit. But the solution gives you the ability to, again, to take that first step if you haven't, or move more by having the ability to look at the portfolio information from an Agile standpoint. So if you work on this over time, you will have the ability then to go to the next step. And the same solution, by the way, could have been shown directly within Azure DevOps. Here I actually have our Agile PPM, what we call our LPM solution, directly within Azure DevOps. And here the purpose is to show how you can work directly within Azure DevOps. Now, the solution that I showed previously could also be shown here, but you can see that within Azure DevOps, we have one plan, what we call our fused UI. And what that means, if your organization is more to the left and you actually are managing all of your work within Azure DevOps, even your Waterfall projects, you can actually embed or fuse one plan directly within it in order to have that portfolio perspective. So here we have represented what is a lean portfolio management hierarchy. So we have our portfolio, we have our value streams, we have our epics, and because we're on Azure DevOps, we have our features. We can further go in and see user stories and tasks, and you can go really as far as you want in terms of the configuration of your Azure DevOps environment. At the epic level, the interesting part is that an epic owner can do all of their work that they would typically do within Azure DevOps. And you can see that we have here one plan directly fused, which means that the same information that we saw previously for the epic within one plan is going to be rendered directly within Azure DevOps. So you can see here that we have our work plan, but our details are showing here. Again, we're using Lean Portfolio Kanban buckets, and we're moving the epic along. We can see the value stream that it belongs to. Again, value stream, very important concept. Program, application that it's impacting, lean business case content, our financials. We've added schedule here for our Gantt charts. We have prioritization and status. So in terms of the financials and resources, again, within Azure DevOps, you can go directly into the solution and then be able to input. You can see now that we're talking about the team concept in terms of individuals. So big change now, because we're dedicating teams to products. So in this particular case, the organization is fully representing capacity of team members by teams, and we can see that that's reflected also in our resource planner. You can add individual team members also, so you can do both in the event that there's some special team members that need to be added to the epic, even though they belong to teams. And in terms of our work plan, I showed the grid earlier, but this is coming directly from what's being built in Azure DevOps in one plan within our grid. We do have the ability to have status reports. None have been built here, but this is a new capability that we actually have within our solution, and same concept in terms of being able to add Power BI reporting. So I think it's just a setup with this particular environment, but you can render them directly within the tool for your user. And again, this is for an epic. So once we have all of our epics, I want to go and see how it renders within one plan. So again, one plan is within the Fuse UI, and you can see everything that I have, and that same that same layout is really what we have within our native solution. So if you went to one plan outside of Azure DevOps, you would see the same thing. So we'll go and look at our portfolio. We will look at our value stream. This is exactly what we were looking at within Azure DevOps. So there's connectivity between both solutions, and the information is represented within both. In this particular case, you can see that it's actually directly connected. You have also the ability to have projects here, by the way. So not that we're not, if you wanted to manage projects also, you can. So here is where we're managing predominantly epics, but you can see that we have projects here. And again, those could be managed with Microsoft Project or directly within the tool if you wanted. So in terms of the hierarchy, we have more of a lean portfolio management structure, and we can represent projects at the same level as epics. I know according to the framework they're not the same thing, but from a portfolio management standpoint we can. You can also see here that we also have strategic themes in terms of being able to represent how value streams contribute to strategic themes and how value rolls up through all of the work that we're doing. In terms of the management of at the different levels, so here while we have a portfolio, we can actually get down to our lean portfolio Kanban for our epics. So here we're managing epics, and you can see that I'm now representing lean portfolio Kanban with, again, after analyzing, this is where the decision is made, and I can easily move back and forth an epic depending, or move forward an epic depending on whether we've completed all of the lean business case components and have our metrics for doing prioritization. If we go back, the other important element is if you've gone all the way to, if you've shifted left, then it's not only a lean portfolio Kanban or that you're going to be managing, you're also going to be managing the program at the product level. And here we will go and show the program Kanban. So at the program level, we're talking about features. So features have been brought in from Azure DevOps. You can see that we have our backlog of features in terms of being able to define all the required data elements. Again, these are all proposed still, and they haven't been brought into our funnel for evaluation. But this is now at a lower level, and this is really one of the values of having one plan for lean portfolio management, because you have the views for all the different levels of the organization within an enterprise agile framework. So this is where release train engineer, program manager, scrum of scrums, if you will be working in order to determine what's going to be delivered within our program increments. So here we have our program increments. Again, we're at the feature level for epics that have been already approved. There are epics that are implementing, and we have to figure out how we can deliver those features within the program increments. And same concept in terms of being able to, move around depending on, how work is actually being completed. We can actually look at applications. So if there's additional data from, again, enterprise architecture perspective or solution architecture application owners that need to look at that, we can develop boards by application, and probably the roadmaps by product are of value to those stakeholders. So here we have the ability to, show what are we going to be delivering, and here this is epics by quarter. So they could represent, program increments. If we wanted to look at, at a value stream level, the highest level, we can also see, and you can see that we actually can have relationships between value streams. And even applications, as I said earlier. So it's flexible from that standpoint. Same concept applies in terms of being able to do your prioritization. So here we have our wish of value, and we have number of views. If we wanted to open up and see, at any level where we are, we can, and then manage to the data set that we want to look at. So here from a wish of value, I could, sort in order to determine, how I'm going to prioritize my epics. And here's the ranking of my epics of how I'm going to prioritize. You could be doing it at a specific value stream level. For simplicity's sake, I'm showing all of them here. And again, all of them are, if you want to look at, specific data for any of them, you can go to the quick edit and see what you've developed within your lean business case. Okay, so that is one plan for lean portfolio management. I'm going to now turn it and close our presentation. So we do have a quick assessment if you're interested in determining where you're at and for readiness for lean portfolio management. Again, you don't have to go all the way. You can start with adaptive and move towards LPM. It's a series of questionnaires in a form that we distribute, and then provide you with a score and commentary in terms of where you're at. For those that don't know us or have not worked with us before, Wickersoft is an end-to-end transformation partner. We provide advisory solutions and operations, so we have a full gamut of services and products in order to support you through your transformation journey. Again, feel free to make contact in order to see how we can actually help you in any of these areas. With respect to project portfolio management, we are the partner of the year for Microsoft and have a whole set of, like I said, solutions and services in order to be that one-stop shop for you. Not only our technology, but the experience of our people, our team members that, most of them have been in the business advising large organizations, over 20 years. So in closing, please feel free to make contact in order to have your assessment on lean portfolio management. Trials for one plan for Adaptive PPM are actually available within AppSource, and also Agile PPM. So feel free to make contact in order to try our solution and see how we can support you on your journey. Thank you very much for your time, and look forward to speaking to you again soon in another webinar.